The final 48 hours, the terrifying script of a global shift. The needles on the seismographs in the basement of the University of Utah do not just vibrate, they dance with a frantic, uncontrollable energy. Across the state line in Wyoming, the ground has forgotten how to be still. It begins as a low hum, a vibration felt in the soles of the feet rather than heard with the ears. But within minutes, the hum turns into a series of sharp, violent jolts. This is not a single earthquake, but a swarm, a relentless barrage of tectonic shifts that signals the crust is no longer able to contain the pressure from below. In the final 48 hours before the unthinkable occurs, the earth stops whispering and begins to scream. The first 12 hours of the countdown are marked by a phenomenon known as an earthquake swarm. In a typical year, Yellowstone experiences thousands of small tremors, but this is different. The frequency increases until the shocks are near constant. In the town of West Yellowstone, windows shatter and bookshelves topple as a magnitude 5.8 quake strikes, followed immediately by a 6.0. The USGS, United States Geological Survey, monitoring stations, which usually provide a steady stream of data, begin to blink out of existence. The sheer intensity of the ground movement, combined with rising subterranean heat, melts the casing of the deep borehole sensors. One by one, the digital eyes of the scientists go dark, leaving them blind at the most critical moment in modern history. As the 24-hour mark approaches, the physical landscape of the park undergoes a grotesque transformation. The ground near the center of the caldera begins to swell at a visible rate. This is ground deformation on a scale never recorded by human instruments. Roads crack open and the asphalt curls like burnt paper. Forests of lodgepole pines, which have stood for decades, are tilted at impossible angles as the earth beneath them rises like a giant bubble. The scenic beauty of the wilderness is replaced by a landscape of trauma. The air becomes thick with a heavy gray haze, not from fire, but from the venting of volcanic gases that have been trapped for 600,000 years. In the middle of the countdown is characterized by a haunting silence from the wildlife. The bison and elk, which are usually fixtures of the Hayden Valley, have vanished. They moved days ago, driven by an instinct that transcends human technology. The only sound left is the roar of the steam vents and the occasional thunderous crack of the crust fracturing. At the USGS headquarters, the remaining data is terrifying. The heat flux is off the charts. Magma is no longer miles deep, it is hundreds of feet from the surface. The hydrothermal system has been completely vaporized, creating a massive pressurized cap of steam that is struggling to hold back the molten rock. With only 12 hours remaining, the earthquakes transition from sharp jolts to a continuous rhythmic vibration known as volcanic tremor. This is the sound of magma moving through conduits, the heartbeat of a monster. The ground in the center of the park has risen by several meters. Geysers that have been active for centuries suddenly go dry as their water sources are flashed into steam or diverted by the massive uplift. The atmosphere over Wyoming turns a strange, sickly shade of yellow as sulfur dioxide concentrations reach toxic levels. The sun appears as a pale, ghostly disk filtered through the thickening veil of volcanic haze. In the final 6 hours, the pressure becomes absolute. The crust above the magma chamber is now so thin and brittle that it can no longer support its own weight. Huge fissures, miles long, open across the park floor. These are not just cracks, they are glowing red gashes that reveal the incandescent heat of the magma beneath. The sound is now a deafening, low-frequency roar that can be felt in the chest of anyone within 100 miles. It is the sound of a planetary-scale pressure cooker reaching its breaking point. The USGS computers, having lost almost all sensor input, can only display a final warning before the entire network in the region goes offline. The climax of this 48-hour journey is not a single explosion, but a systemic failure of the Earth's surface. The ground doesn't just break, it disintegrates. The first massive eruption columns begin to punch through the weakened crust, shooting ash and pulverized rock 40,000 feet into the stratosphere. The force of the initial blast is equivalent to thousands of nuclear weapons detonating simultaneously. The sky is erased by a wall of gray and black ash that moves with the speed of a jet fighter. The beautiful meadows and thermal pools are gone, replaced by a pyroclastic flow, a searing wave of gas and rock that incinerates everything in its path. The ending of the countdown marks the beginning of a new era. As the sun is completely blocked out, a volcanic winter begins to take hold. The ashfall, which started as a light dusting in the neighboring states, becomes a heavy, suffocating blanket that collapses roofs and clogs engines. The 48 hours of warning were all the Earth gave. The sensors are dead, the park is gone, and the world is left to face the consequences of a giant that has finally finished its long sleep. The transformation is complete, from a national treasure to a global catastrophe. The silence that follows the initial blast is perhaps the most terrifying part. It is the silence of a landscape that has been reset to zero. The once vibrant ecosystem of Yellowstone is now a smoking caldera, a hollowed-out shell of its former self. The geological clock has been reset, and the world must now learn to live in the shadow of the ash. The 48 hours of chaos have led to a silence that will last for generations as the Earth slowly begins the long process of cooling and settling once again.